Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanee and Clarky visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right. Hello, how are we?
Very well. How are you guys?
Yeah, likewise, very well. Very well. It's a lovely sunny day, so the world is good.
It does help,
Absolutely
doesn't it?
glorious day, yes.
Sure does.
Have you got, I didn't realise you guys had lovely weather as well, so that's nice to know.
Mm.
It's a rarity, isn't it? You always hear that it's nice in one place or one side of the country and soaking wet in the other. Although I think in Victoria you still have to watch what's going on with your rivers. Is that right?
Yes, we're still
Is it
flooding,
ever?
and as of tomorrow, I think we start flooding again, is the prediction. I don't know what it's called now, if it's not the bomb, but I'm pretty sure the bomb would be telling
Bureau of
us.
Meteorology.
It's
Yeah.
the Bureau. I went to Shepparton during the week because we've got a branch there, and to get there I had to go a fair way out of my way, and the roads are atrocious. So the roads that are open are literally potholed terribly. You can't. It's quite unsafe, really. And then, of course, you get to Shepparton, and like half the city is is cut off from the other half because there's a causeway and that's flooded. Yeah, so
is that the Murray?
No, it's the Goulburn. So half the people couldn't get to work because they can't get through it because of all the road closures. They're isolated. So some of them just had to have food that was in their house because they couldn't get to a supermarket or anything just for a few days at least. Others had to evacuate because of the threat of flood. And so there was one bloke whose house went underwater. And then...
Which waterway is Ilden on? Because I was watching the news last night and I thought that I was watching it as I was cooking dinner, so it was sort of in the distance. I didn't catch all the names. I thought they were talking about Echuca. That's famous, isn't it, for being
that's on the Murray.
Murray, right?
Yeah, that's on the Murray. So Ilden is fed into by the Halkwa and I think the Rubicon.
Yeah.
There are a few.
Gosh.
And then when the spillway itself, it's also fed in by the Goulburn. Right. But the spillway itself then pours back out into the Goulburn. And downstream of the Goulburn, you've got the Rubicon and the Acheron, and they were already flooding anyway.
God.
Ilden is at 100.4% or something, and was up to nearly 102%. So they've had to let water out, which is, fine. But the flooding is actually further downstream already, and the ground's all saturated. And so my anecdote is I went up there yesterday. Right. So I agree with Clarky on the pothole situation. I had to concentrate. Like I drove up via the Black Spur and the Maroondah Highway, and that was all perfectly fine. But I decided to come back because it's quicker via Yea and cut down before Seymour because Seymour flooded out as well. And I think Seymour's still cut off. And that was all fine, but you had to really, really focus and avoid the potholes. But the reason I went is because I've got this friend of my dad's who's still alive, right? I think he's like the second last one still alive. Yeah. And he is 99 and 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last year or this year, he fell over and he broke his hip. And before he did that, though, he'd asked me to take him up to the houseboat because he and Dad and the boys used to go up every Cup weekend and have ridiculous, boys, whatever the hell they did. They drank a lot, shot some guns, did some shit that you did in the olden days. And they had these great times. And after I did the houseboat up, he wanted to go up. So I thought, look, against medical advice, because sitting in a car for a long time when you've just had your hip replaced is not a great idea.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. For him or for you?
Yeah. I'm running out of time. Well, he's had his longer than he's been in rehab and that for a lot longer than I have. But I just thought, I just feel like he could die at any minute, basically. Yeah. And he just had COVID and he's been quite poorly. So sorry if you hear this ever, Clem. But I was concerned. So I thought, look, now or never, I'm still not at work, so I'll do it. And it was right in between the floods and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but so he's a funny one. He's 52 years my senior, and I've known him since a small child. And ever since Dad died, and his wife died, he's a bit flirty.
Oh,
anyway,
God.
He was fine yesterday. It was no bother. But I'd get him up there, and I was a bit worried about because he had to get him down the stairs, and he's got his walker, but he was so agile, like it was unbelievable. He gets down the stairs and he's on the marina and he trots along, and I get him on the boat, and he was quite overcome at how good it is. He's like, he didn't even recognize it. I'm standing out in the front of it. I'm like, do you recognize it? And he's like, oh my God, that's your boat. He gets on. He's telling me how wonderful it is and that. And he mentioned that, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I went and visited him, and I said, look, because I was a bit worried about how tiring it would be for him to go up and back in a day, sitting in the car and that. So I actually had said to him, would you like to stay over, or, you know, don't want to do that?
Yeah.
And he said,
Thought he was
no.
Oh, yeah,
No. Yeah, no.
I
He's
insist
like, no.
on separate rooms, though, Schmitty.
Well, it was funny because then we're on the boat and he says, you know, it's lovely. Now I'm sitting here and, you know, how beautiful it is. You know, I wish you were staying over and I'd throw some lines in and do some fishing, but I don't want to come between you and Tony.
Brilliant.
Watch
Love
out,
it.
Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was so funny.
Did you
And,
say damn?
I was like, I'm pretty sure he'll be okay. But I actually have to get back. Sorry, Clem, because I've made plans for tomorrow. But maybe next time, Tony and I can take you up. He didn't seem so keen on that. I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I've been up to.
You could have had a good
Lovely.
Benny Hill weekend on the houseboat.
Oh, look, to be honest, I have the fear of waking up and finding that he's passed away on the boat. And I'm like, oh, that'll be a lot of hassle. So,
It's a good
Rather, I
point
was
you
thinking
make.
about that. It's like it's all well and good until it goes wrong. But have you taken him out
Or
of
if he
aged care, or
falls
is he
and
living
hurts
at home?
No, he's fully independent. He's still at home.
Oh, how fabulous.
Wow.
Good on him.
Yeah, so his beautiful wife Sandra passed away 8 years ago, and he has. He was saying that he had a couple of years that were really bad, but then he joined a men's shed, and he gets incredible value out of this men's shed. He goes 2 or 3 days a week. I don't know what he does. He makes stuff. He get little projects and that, but it's created an environment of male friends for him.
Yep.
So he's got lots of mates from that, and they look after him. He's got beautiful neighbours who look after him. And since the fall and breaking his hip, he's actually got some help from the council as well.
Yep.
But no, he's still at home.
He's got quality of life, so he's fine.
Yeah, he's a bit annoyed because someone dobbed him in and said that he was medically unfit to drive, which made me laugh. And it was literally only a couple of weeks ago. And he got a note from Vic Roads saying, you know, we've been advised that you shouldn't be driving, so your license will be cancelled in 10 days or whatever the date was. And he was absolutely furious. Yeah, he was furious. So he goes to the doctor and he says, what's this about? And the doctor says, oh, I don't know anything about it. So then he gets a letter from the doctor saying that he is actually fit to drive. He rings up Vic Roads and he has a whole conversation with Vic Roads proving that he is perfectly fine and he can drive, and they want him to get a cardiology report. Anyway, at the end of the day, they have renewed his license, but he's only allowed to travel 10 kilometres.
Daylight. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't think he drives at night anyway. He just needs to go to the men's shed, the doctors and the supermarket. Yeah.
So is it true that you can just report someone as being unfit to drive and they
Tony's
cancel
response.
it?
Absolutely. Tony was livid. He's like,
I'm shocked by that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so do I.
Shame on you, Vic Roads.
Anyway, so that's my Clemmy story for you.
Nice. What about you, Swanee?
Oh, nothing particularly. It's been a bit of a quiet time. I was just looking at something before I came in here. I seem to have, you know, when you watch something on Facebook and then it sort of starts to suggest other things, so all of a sudden you seem to be watching the same things, but you don't know where it came from in the first instance, right? I watched something the other day and it's called Interventions. And it starts off with the warning saying, you know, it might be really distressing. So I'm like, oh, what's this? Anyway, it's about... And now, every afternoon, it comes time to collect the kids from school or whatever else. And I'm like, oh, God, I don't really want to get in the car because I really want to finish watching this. And I don't want to, you know, I've got another 3 minutes to find out what happens. But I've realised it's all about people with addiction to, you know, really awful. They film them, you know, at the height of their addiction, drugs, alcohol. And then there's an intervention. They send them off to rehab usually, and then whether it's successful or not. But I realise I have an addiction to interventions.
Intervention.
And as I was coming up, I said, "Oh God, I know how it feels, people. I know what it is."
I can't function anymore.
But I keep watching things. I need to show my kids. They're the people who need to watch it because it's really shocking. Oh God, what people do and what they look like, and then how much better they look after a relatively short period. So basically I'm doing nothing, Clarky. What about you, darling? What are you up to?
Oh goodness. We Well, I've had my time in Shepparton, which was interesting, but I feel for a lot of people there. But I would like to tell you about what we're drinking.
Oh.
But
having just talked about drug and alcohol addiction, what are we drinking? Yeah.
Correct. So the reason I'd like to tell you is that we're having a Halden rosé, which is a very delicious rosé. It's a little bit like,
it's very dark.
You know those strawberry and cream lollies?
Yeah.
that are well, kind of. No, the ones that are hard more so. They were strawberries and cream. Hard nipples, exactly. Yeah, the ones that have been in the fridge. No, so it's got this lovely kind of creaminess to it, which I really enjoy in a wine. And I don't think anybody else tastes creaminess when they have wines, but I do with some of them. And it's very, very nice. So
Shiraz and Cabernet fruit.
Anyway, so the reason I wanted to tell you that story is because we went there to get some wine for Reggie because it's Reggie's birthday celebration weekend this weekend. So we're catching up with her and having lots of wine.
Are you going to the Big Smoke or is she coming to see you?
We're going to Dalesford.
Oh, you did mention this.
Yeah, which is exciting.
And what's in Dalesford? What's it known for?
Gay people.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, probably not so much anyway. It was a very big gay people thing back in the 90s.
I had a reference to this.
Yeah.
Just did this. That's going to bother me now. Yeah, where I heard it.
Well, was it Galesford or something?
I'll have to work out where I heard it.
It's just a beautiful little town. Nice food and wine and stuff. Good to walk around. Not wine in the context of wineries, but
no.
Oh yeah, and of course, silly me, Hepburn Springs. So there's a whole lot of massages you can get. Yeah.
Didn't they? Was it mineral water brand? No.
Yeah, it is.
It still is. It certainly reminds of the 80s or something. Hepburn Springs.
That's where it comes from.
Like Tarina Spa. Do you remember that one?
No,
Tarina Spa. I think I'm making that up. Hepburn Springs, Tarina Spa.
There you go. What about everyone else? What are you drinking? Enough about me. What about you?
I've forgotten to even bring a drink, but given it's I'm 3 hours behind and it's middle of the afternoon.
You are brilliant.
I'm just really I don't know. Anyway, Schmitty, what about you, darling? I'm sure you've got something interesting.
Well, I'm about to open a bottle of Valley de Secrets, the Valley of Secrets, of course, which is a Cuvée Brut Exceptionnel, which I believe comes from France, but I believe it comes from Aldi.
Aldi in France.
Aldi in France, yes.
All right.
Aldi in Essendon.
Mini-ponds, yes. Tony and I actually quite enjoy some of the sparklings at Aldi. I can tell you that probably not the cheapest ones. The middle of the range and upper range sparklings are quite decent. So
it's not from Champagne though. It's just somewhere from France.
It says product of France, produit de France.
Well, if it had come from Champagne, they could call it Champagne. So I just wondered where it was from.
It could. It says Grand Reserve, so it's a sparkling wine. Vin Musso, so not from Champagne, but drinkable nonetheless. All right, who are we?
All right,
I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are
Trial by
Wine.
And Clarky, I believe you're telling us a story today.
Well, my dear, you are correct. I have a story for us all.
For my arsehole?
So,
it sounded like.
For your prolapse.
We've already started.
Us all.
No.
Goodness. Yes, for us all.
Oh, thank you. Right.
Yes. So, do you recall our story from a few weeks back of Elisa Lam and her disappearance at the Cecil Hotel? So this is the story of Johann Jack Unterweger, who was Austrian, and he stayed at the Cecil Hotel at one point and actually managed to squeeze in a little bit of crime time during his stay.
That's good. He's always on the job, even when he's abroad.
Oh, I know, right? Quality. So before I get too far into it, I'll tell you about my sources. So I had allthat'sinteresting.com.
Love it.
Wikipedia and grunge.com.
I've seen that once or twice. No Lad Bible?
Yeah, no Lad Bible. No.
Disappointing.
Have I used allthat'sinteresting.com or have you used it before?
I've definitely
it comes up regularly, I think.
Yeah,
it's a good one. So we'll call him Jack, not Johann, because he went by Jack.
Okay.
So he was an Austrian. I think I might just cut to the chase because the real shock in this story isn't so much. Well, I mean, there's obviously the crimes that he committed, but there's just a weird whole thing that goes on in the middle that I was fascinated by, and I still can't really get my head around it. He was an Austrian serial killer who committed murder in several countries. Austria, West Germany, Czechoslovakia, and the United States. He was born on the 16th of August 1950 and passed away on the 29th of June 1994. So that's kind of the time frame we're working to.
We could have had a guess there because the name of the countries don't exist anymore, right? So there had to be a window opportunity there when he was.
Isn't that true? Yes, well spotted and well played. Yes. He was born in Judenberg, Styria in Austria. I'm sure I pronounced at least two of those words incorrectly. To Theresia Unterweger, a Vietnamese barmaid and waitress. I wouldn't have picked that from the name, but there you go. And Jack Becker, an American soldier whom she had met in Trieste in Italy.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Trieste.
Yeah, that'll do. That sounds much better. Some sources described his mother as a sex worker. And his
Rude.
And
some.
Yeah, well, and what were the sources?
Mm.
She was jailed for fraud while pregnant, but was released and travelled to Graz, where he was born. And after his mother was arrested again in 1953, he was sent to Carinthia to live with his grandfather, who was known as an alcoholic and rough fellow, who regularly used his grandson to help him steal farm animals.
Oh.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
because they cars. No.
Yeah. It was in the 50s though, so, you know.
Is Carinthia still in Austria?
Slovenia.
Okay, so nearby.
Oh, the article is about a president. Hang on, no, let me go into a little more detail. Is the southernmost Austrian state in the Eastern Alps.
So it might border Slovenia or something.
We know you're all about the geography, Carla.
I'm not. I know you always are, and I never am, and so you always catch me out with those ones. So well done.
No. I find it interesting. That's all.
Like so many of our criminals that we've spoken about, Jack grew up in a deeply dysfunctional, unhappy home, and by his early teens, he'd turned to crime as an outlet for his anger. He was in and out of prison for much of his youth. He worked as a waiter, but between 1966 and 1974, he was convicted 16 times, mostly for theft-related offences, but also for pimping and sexual assault on a sex worker. Yeah. He spent most of those 8 years in jail. So 8 years, he was convicted 16 times, and he spent most of those years in jail. He's one busy fellow. So in 1974, Jack murdered an 18-year-old West German national, Margaret Schaefer, by strangling her with her own bra, for which he was convicted. He claimed that he had seen his mother's face in Schaefer's eyes as he killed her. Mm. If Jack thought this would elicit sympathy because he had been abandoned by his mother in youth, he was mistaken and quickly sentenced to life in prison.
Because everyone's like, we all see our mothers.
Oh, so that's the end of the story, is it? Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Like, thanks for sharing.
There you go. Rightio.
And once again,
great story, Clarky.
That was good. Yeah.
Who do you want to sentence?
Burley for making the bras.
Yeah. Once again, life in prison proves not to be life in prison.
That old chestnut.
And I'll tell you why. So once behind bars, Jack seemed to be...
Did he find God? And was he a model prisoner?
No, it's part of the junior league.
I was all over that. I totally went looking for that because I thought that must have been it. But no, something that we haven't heard happen. He seemed to be dedicated to turning his life around. Something profound seemed to shift inside Jack as he began to write. Previously illiterate, Jack learned to read and write and seemingly couldn't stop. He was a model prisoner, devoting his attention to furthering his education by devouring books. He began writing his own short stories, poems, and plays.
Plays.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? So his book, Endstation Zuchthaus, Terminal Prison, won a literary prize in 1984. So in 10 years, he's gone from being illiterate to winning a literary prize. His autobiography, I'm going to try to say it in Austrian just for shits and giggles, but apologies to anyone who actually knows how to say this word.
Yeah.
Fegefeuer, which means purgatory. I am so not Austrian.
Did you actually try to listen to a pronunciation of it, and that was your attempt at it, or you just
I just totally made it up. Right. Yeah. It was just spontaneous. I actually wasn't going to do it, and I thought, let's just do it.
I liked it. Thanks.
Australians killing it with their language skills.
I know, right? Yeah.
The world's so jealous of us.
Yeah, you might be shocked to know that I was actually lived in Austria for 10 years of my life.
I would be.
I didn't, yeah, and you should be. Yeah. So
was that Figertherther? Was it?
Figertherther.
Beautiful.
Spell it.
You're a natural.
Yeah. I know, right? So it really means purgatory. Yeah. And it zoomed to the top of the bestseller list and was adapted into a movie.
So had he been released from jail at this point, or was that all from prison?
Still in jail.
Thus the success, right?
Yeah. So he's won a literary prize in 1984.
Oh, yes.
And then his new book has zoomed to the top of the bestseller list.
Ugh.
So intellectuals in Austria
here we go.
Rallied behind Jack, believing him to be proof that people can change.
No, they knew he'd killed someone, but
totally
really
killed people. But
he's a literary genius.
He's reformed.
Many saw him as an essential reminder that a person could rise above their circumstances. Jack represented the great...
He murdered a sex worker because he couldn't read and write?
No, because he saw his mum in her eyes.
Because he's a monster. It doesn't matter whether he can read or write. Anyway,
well, no, I think
he can now.
I think the argument we're having, though, is that if you learn to read and write good books, then it doesn't matter what you've done in your past. You're now worthy of time on this earth.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. You're adding value to humanity. Okay.
Well, only to the people who want to read it. He represented the great hope of intellectuals that through the verbalization of problems, you can somehow get to grips with them. We wanted to believe him very badly, said Humour, and I'm not sure why I have his name in here, nor am I sure who he is. So excellent researching, Clarky. You've nailed it. There were, however, some disconcerting signs within Jack's growing body of work that he hadn't completely shaken his obsession with murder and violence.
Oh.
Such as, no theme is more poetic than the death of a beautiful woman, he wrote at one point. Another of his odes went, you still seem strange and distant.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
Happy so far?
Yeah.
Yep. Let him out. You still seem strange and distant
point of fact.
And lively death, but one day you will be close and full of flames. Come, lover, I am there. Take me, I am yours. I find the other one worse than that. That's just confusing to me. Nevertheless, the campaign to get him released worked. So like 15 years into his life sentence, the minimum required by Austrian law, he was released from prison in May 1990. So to be fair, there was an appeal and it went to a judge, and the judge said, no, 15 years is his minimum, so come back and see me when 15 years is up, which is good. But yeah, he's still got his 15 years.
But he leaves as a published author with a degree of notoriety and the backing of academics.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Ah, interesting.
Which is important.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be.
The prison governor declared, we will never find a prisoner so well prepared for freedom.
Oh.
Doesn't this sound nice so far? Feeling warm and fuzzy?
Yep.
What were the statistics at the time for recidivism?
Yeah, who is it?
It means people who reoffend who've been criminally convicted, recidivist.
Why would I know that?
Well, I'm just thinking, okay, great, he can come out now. He's killed someone. The odds and the statistics are that if you've committed a crime like that, the odds are a lot higher that you will do it again. I don't care how many books and plays and poems you've written.
I love that he's written plays. That's what gets me the most. It's like, I didn't just write a novel or
George Orwell.
It's like, oh no, I think they wanted. They thought they were like a play.
So stats aside, Schmitty,
Hook comes on stage and wanks her off. Sorry, that was a footnote he put in.
What?
It meant to be yanks her off. Anyway, moving on.
What?
Oh.
What happened there?
No.
100 years ago, my sister was directing
right.
Joseph in his amazing Technicolor
Okay.
Dreamcoat, and
Yeah,
she wrote a
Footnote.
stage direction into it saying Hook comes on, Hook enters from stage left, and she meant to write yanks her off and wrote wanks her off.
Oh God!
To which we found very amusing. When we
because there was no context. I thought we were talking about Captain Hook,
So
and
right.
so then I'm just going, how does that work? Is that some? Is that a serial killer reference?
I know.
That's so
Awful.
disturbing. That's not what I meant at all. I was really talking about miswritten play. We were talking about plays. That's what I was thinking
Yes,
of.
got it.
Whoopsies.
Right. Good chat.
Okay.
So
too dark. I have to liven myself up. Go on.
I understand that I don't have the stats, and so my bad. But
no, not you.
You're absolutely correct.
System
right?
of the time. Yep.
Once again, you just know how stuff works. How long do you reckon it would take for another victim?
For him to reoffend?
Same week he got out?
Well, no, not that quick.
Oh, all right.
What do we know in sort of what circumstances he was released? Like, did he have to have a parole officer look after him or anything, or was he just a free man?
No, he's a free man because they'll never find a prison so well prepared for freedom. So he's cut free, go and live your life.
Is this when we know he's off on holidays in the US, or is he still like
going
to set up life?
He's only killed one woman at this point in time. So
that's
like he said, he'd killed in Germany, like lots of places. A year?
So just 4 months later...
I was going to say 6 months, but you know.
Well, there you go.
It was only a guess.
Yeah, it was good.
Not
good
even
guessing.
trying to be a good boy, right?
Like, I know, right? Like, seriously, 4 months later, after being a model prisoner ready for release, a prostitute was found dead, strangled with her underwear, just like Margaret Schaefer.
But no one
Didn't
thought
even change his MO.
Couldn't have been.
No, exactly the same MO. So you'd never connect those two together. The body count rapidly increased. 7 more women were murdered in the subsequent months, each following a chillingly similar pattern. The victims were prostitutes who had been strangled with their bras, then dumped in the woods.
No one was watching him?
Like what? I know it's not computer
or just maybe
times.
checking on him, yeah. No,
So
it was. Wasn't it 1990?
Well, yeah, but the first one wasn't. So the first one may have been hard to...
okay. But if you just... I would have thought... yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know.
But you'd think if there's an appeal to get him out, there would be enough people aware that maybe he's not the model prisoner and we should understand what he did.
That's a good point, actually, because I would just assume that everybody knows, but perhaps it has sort of slipped by if he's been in jail and come out. But I just thought because he had such notoriety... Like, this is ringing some bells. Anybody?
That he was a recidivist. Anybody? That's right.
Ring any bells? No, I can't think of anything that rhymes.
No. So 7 women in subsequent months, and they were all like an echo of Jack's first kill. So just out of respect, the victims were Brunhild Massa. I'm going to murder names, but, I'll do it anyway.
No pun intended.
No pun, yeah.
Oh, God. Ugh, kill me now.
Sorry.
Maybe start
edit button.
But not with my underwear.
Ching!
Oh, goodness. Okay. Apologies for the pronunciation, but I am going to tell you the victims' names out of respect. So Brunhild Massa, Heidi Hammerer, Elfried Schrempf, Sylvia Zagler, Sabine Moitzel, Karen Eroglu Sladky, and Regina Prem. And they were all aged between kind of early 20s to late 40s.
And all of them were strangled with their underwear.
Yes, and all murdered in the first year after his release.
Jeepers, that's busy.
So 4 months for them to find the first body, and then...
Oh, right, and then a reveal didn't happen. Okay,
it's like one a month almost that he's killed after that first one.
Jeepers.
Shocking.
Busy boy.
And this source says that they were all garroted with their bras. Now, that came up in one source, not the others. So they talked about strangled. I don't know whether that's an attempt to hide the horror or if it's actually garrote was...
It depends.
What's the definition of garrote, Schmitty?
I'll help you out here.
Glad you asked.
I've heard the term, but I don't know the definition.
I believe that with a garrote, you will put something like a stick or something in it and turn it. So
that's
that you
right. Yes.
Incredible amount of tension on it.
Right.
And that's rather than, just manual strangulation, which is just pulling it tight yourself.
Garrot's not beheading or anything, but where you get that wire and go.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. But you can.
In certain circumstances, you can behead someone with a garrote, should you be using something like piano wire, etc., simply because of the force and the wire cutting through.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas in the case, so it's to do with using
Good to
something
know.
else to spin it, to tighten it up, right? That's the garroting bit.
So garroted can mean strangulation then?
Yes. Yeah,
Right,
you can.
okay,
Yeah, you don't have to be beheaded.
I was thinking, my God, that's... Yeah, okay.
It's still disgusting and terrible.
Yes.
I was just waiting for the recrimination that I normally get when I know stuff.
We're used to it.
I know. Desensitized finally.
There was also another killing in similar circumstances of Blanka Bochkova, I think it is, in Czechoslovakia. And of course, they didn't know it at the time, but this is something that they've tied back to him later. He seemed to have grown far beyond the violence that defined his early years. He'd become something of an Austrian literary sensation. He gave readings, staged his plays, and worked as a reporter. In fact, Jack established himself as a key journalist investigating the recent string of prostitute murders.
That's not unusual. Well, not in terms of...
That is, but not unusual for them to follow.
Yeah, to get involved. Sometimes they help the police. Sometimes they go back to the scene of the crime a lot. They're often...
They inject themselves into the
serial
investigation.
killers, Carla.
But normally after they've... Not normally after they've been caught and to serve time, because no one would normally trust them, right? Normally that happens while there's still some innocent, considered innocent person within the community.
It's like a double bluff, though. It's like a double bluff. It's like, if I'm helping out because I'm a literary genius, no one would actually believe that I would have the front to do that. So in some ways, him going, oh, look, I know I killed someone exactly the same way 15 years ago.
Yes, I know how to...
that will help me to report on it because I know how this works.
But I think to me, the thing about, and I acknowledge that it's hindsight, but the thing about it is he's killed someone. He's done 15 years. There's been a push to get him out earlier than his life. And then he's killed 7 people. So, more or less the minute he gets out of jail, he killed 7 people in 12 months. And then he's being involved in the investigating of the murders. Surely someone connects those dots.
I know, it's like a bad movie.
It's awful. And going through the whole thing, I was like, God, are you serious? And he's still 7 more murders since he's been out, and he's still revered by the literary community.
And you're not mentioning any names, but I mean, at this point, there'd have to be somebody within the investigative team, bureau, whatever else, who I'm quite annoyed with, in the sense that they're not doing any real due diligence on him and where he's at any point during the investigation, just as a precaution.
True,
yes.
But also you've got the issue that we're talking about. What year is this? Between 1974 and 1984.
Yeah,
or something?
1990 and 1991.
1990, and these are crimes that are committed in Czechoslovakia.
Oh, well, no. So 7
Germany,
of them in Austria. The 7.
Yeah. See.
So I think the bit I acknowledge that the 74 one would have been hard to know about, but I think if there's a push to get someone out of jail.
You would have been, you should have been.
You'd
looking
have
at
to
it
be
immediately.
talking about at that time what happened. So there must have been some people in the legal fraternity who knew what he'd done as he was getting let out. So, he was a key journalist investigating the recent string of prostitute murders. Shamelessly, Jack interviewed Vienna's chief of police and penned newspaper essays about the deaths. Soon, his reporting work also brought him to the United States. In 1991, he was hired by an Austrian magazine to write about crime in Los Angeles, where he checked into, you guessed it, the infamous Cecil Hotel. He sought to investigate the differences between US and European attitudes to prostitution, including the terrible conditions suffered by American prostitutes. I mean...
He should really be working in that area, shouldn't he?
Oh, God.
It's revolting.
It's really quite almost a community service job he's doing there.
Yeah,
isn't it though?
What a good guy.
I'll let you know because I used to kill them. I killed one once.
Yeah, I know exactly how.
Yeah, but
this
she
works.
had
okay,
much
you
better
did a good
digs.
job. Yeah.
She had nice underwear too.
Goodness.
Not like those American ones. They can't afford anything. It's terrible for the poor things.
So he met local police, even going as far as to participate in a ride-along of the city's red light districts.
Ooh.
Oh, my Lord.
During
Bad
his
boys,
5
bad boys.
weeks in Los Angeles, 3 prostitutes were murdered, beaten, sexually assaulted with tree branches, and, you guessed it, strangled with their own bras. So these victims were Shannon Exley, Irene Rodriguez, and Peggy Booth. Authorities finally caught up with Jack after he'd killed 12 women in 4 countries.
Far out.
And how did that finally come about? Because, you know...
I'm glad you
I
asked.
can't imagine how it would have been pointing in his direction. What a surprise it must have been for someone to come across that.
Correct. So by this point, enough bodies had piled up that Jack was beginning to attract the attention of local authorities on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean.
Was it body 12? And everyone went, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's have a second look at.
If we get to a baker's dozen...
Yeah. A baker's dozen, and then we're definitely having a look.
That's unlucky.
Enough.
We can't have that. Police in Los Angeles matched the timeline of the prostitute murders with Jack's stay in the city. Then he fled from the US to Switzerland, then Paris, then back to Miami, where his story would finally begin its bloody conclusion.
Oh.
It was in Miami where authorities finally caught up with Jack and arrested him in February of 1992. So I must say that's fairly quick.
In the end.
I'm happy with that. The way they did it was the FBI caught him by convincing him that they were reporters from Success magazine, ready to pay him $10,000 for the chance to hear his story.
Oh, such a narcissist. Yep.
He took the bait, and instead of sitting down with a doting reporter, he walked into a room filled with US Marshals.
Good.
He'd relished the attention of the press ever since his writing career took off while in prison.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Once released, he posed for high-fashion photo shoots and went on TV to discuss his beloved works, all while continuing to court his fawning press. Ultimately, his love for attention was his undoing. After his capture, he was soon extradited back to Austria. Still, many of his former defenders stood by their man.
I was going to say that, and I was like, we'll send him back to Austria. It's like, we're his,
revered
with the academic elites. Oh, we don't believe a word of it. Come back, because we've put our names on the line here and said it. So this can't be true.
And I must say it's funny, right? Because sometimes we talk about gullibility and sometimes, people who aren't educated do things that are difficult to understand. But I think this is a really good example of the fact that people who are educated also have the same challenges.
Just as bloody stupid.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. So old mate Humour, who I spoke about earlier, who I have no idea who he is.
And it's funny, I'll tell you.
Humour.
Using humour. So he said if he was the killer, he would be one of the cases of the century. I'm not sure that's a good evidence to state that he's not the killer. No. But Schmitty, to you, statistically, the chance that I would know one of these cases of the century is so unlikely that, therefore, I think he is not guilty. It's an educated person saying that.
What?
The chance that I would know one of these cases of the century is so unlikely that he can't be guilty. Would that stand up in court?
Charles Manson, it had happened prior to this. Like, that's a case of the century.
Says
what the hell?
No, but it's just
Mr. Humour.
Yeah.
It's just somebody else with a massive ego saying that, right? Oh, I wouldn't have to do it with me.
Says it's most unlikely. Victims before they're murdered. I don't think many people would go, I know that I'm hanging out with one of the cases of the century, therefore I'll get murdered. That's the whole point of it. Anyway, Jack had lived a double life in more ways than one. During his trial, some women wept during the proceedings, believing him to be an innocent victim. Other women testified to his unsettling behaviour. Eventually, several factors, including his lack of an alibi, led to his conviction on the 29th of June, 1994. That night, he hanged himself in prison. One Austrian politician dryly equipped that it was his best murder. I like that one. I'm happy with that. I cannot bear going back into a cell, he had said after his capture. He stayed true to his word and chose death over incarceration. Following his death, even his former defenders acknowledged that they had fallen for a myth. Old mate Peter Humour, who is also known as Using Humour, at the time I genuinely believed that Jack was a reformed man, but now I feel I was deceived and
Really?
and that I am partly to blame.
I think you were deceived yourself, mate. Yep.
Yes. And that, my friends, is the story of Jack Unterweger.
Oh, my God. That's so infuriating, isn't it?
It's just shocking.
It is. It's like, how did everybody just turn such a blind eye to it? Were there any, I suppose you would have mentioned it if you found them, but I'd love to know. I could imagine everybody trying to cover their ass after that, right? Everybody who'd involved in.
Yeah, maybe that's why in Austria there were so many women were murdered, and only 3 were murdered in the US in 5 weeks, and they were straight on it. So
I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, so the people in Austria are like, no, nothing to see here.
No. We don't want to support that hypothesis because that would go against
what
we got about.
Can't be anything to do with us. Yep.
Yeah. We totally didn't let an unreformed serial killer out so that he could kill 7 people in 12 months, then allow him to get a job in America reporting on prostitutes so he could kill more people.
On his own cases. The dumbest thing is that, like, why let him out? He was writing good shit in prison. Like, if you love the work that he was doing, why let him out?
Correct. Keep him there.
Yep. Yeah, plenty of time.
Yep.
Isn't it funny, though, that because someone starts writing good books, they then all of a sudden are a reformed person? And I did actually read somewhere that Purgatory, which was his bestseller, there was actually some doubt later on as to whether or not he actually wrote it.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know who would have written it, but it's fascinating that someone can go from being illiterate to writing best-selling novels and winning literary prizes.
There's a lot of time in, like, he may have had a great imagination. He may have had a good spoken vocabulary. And then when he gets into prison, he gets the time to get the education that he hadn't had prior. So I don't know that I find it that odd. And he obviously just then dedicated himself to that craft.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it's odd because it doesn't happen that often.
True. But then,
I think possibly the other thing is that if he hasn't gone down the path of the standard education, maybe his view on the way you write things is very different to the way that you get taught to write things. And so that might have made it a bit more impressive if it was well written, but in a different style, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Could be. Don't know. Don't speak Austrian. Can't read it. And I don't think it'll translate that well.
Can't pronounce it very well either.
Can I have a look at a photo of him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was his name? Johann.
I can get one up on the. Yeah, I can put one up on the screen if you like.
Unterweger. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
He's moderately ordinary looking. Not bad.
I think he's not. He doesn't look like a serial killer.
Famous,
but they never do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What happened to Clarky? He thought he didn't look like a serial killer.
He said the chances of him knowing somebody who is a serial killer is so slim, therefore he's innocent. That's what Using Humour said. Yeah. Come on, mate. That's not how you determine guilt or innocence.
I think the chances of knowing a serial killer are probably higher than you realise, but you might never know that they are one.
Also, when the person that you're talking about has been convicted of murdering somebody in the same circumstances as so many other people.
True.
I don't know, mate.
True.
Oh, sweet. I've just found this thing on ranker.com. And
on what?
Saying, Ranker. I've used it once before. I don't know why it's
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah, ranker.com. It says he produced
a number of literary from
works,
the left and including
stage. Including children's stories.
Yeah. Oh.
Excellent.
He got his nickname the Poet of Death because he was, by all accounts, a gifted writer. People rallied around him as an example of prisoner reform. He wrote about his struggles as a son of a sex worker and about the hardships suffered in prison. He painted himself as the victim instead of a killer. Yeah.
It's just fascinating, though, that he can kill so many people so quickly while still having people think that it's not him.
Yes.
Someone wrote a song about him, didn't they? The only boy who could ever reach me was the son of a
The son
sex
of a preacher,
worker.
mate.
Of a prostitute.
Oh,
Yes,
gross.
he
What a
was.
life.
Yeah, right.
So I'm happy to go to sentencing.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Look, he doesn't get off by killing himself. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy for him to go to the purgatory that he, created, and he can be perpetually being purgatory in some place where his victims get to give him a bit of their
Comeuppance.
Yeah. But I also think all of those academic / highbrow idiots who just chose to not see a danger because it didn't matter to them, or what mattered more was this literary genius and this brilliance. For whatever reason that they did it, I want to put them all in. I think I'll create in Trial by One some kind of really uncomfortable rodeo, and all of the animals that Unterweger stole with his father can be in there. I'm assuming, like bulls and horses and stuff, but they're really angry because they got stolen.
Dragons and crocodiles.
Yeah. And all of those academics can just have to ride those wild animals from morning till night. And if they get gored, oh well, I'm just going to pop them in there. I don't know why I came up with a rodeo, but I quite like the idea of it.
Can it be like the Colosseum and they get locked in there with these animals in red?
Yeah. And all the illiterate people in the world can decide whether they're thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I like it.
Any thoughts from either of you?
I've just found this little bit of information, which I like how it's just sort of how it describes the people who were sort of heralding him as this, reformed man, to the Viennese cafe intellectual. So you can really get a picture of the type of person we're talking about, right? Who pulled him from prison and embraced him as one of their own. One commentator explains, Jack Unterweger was proof positive that bad boys can become good men. He was their reclamation project, their social experiment, their civilized barbarian. So you could imagine these absolute wankers just, look, he is an experiment, which of course worked for him, right? So he might have been the cleverest of all by going, oh my goodness, this is just working so beautifully for me. These people think they're so smart and they're playing right into this for me.
Yeah, what's that religious thing? The cleverest thing that Satan did was convince people that he doesn't exist or whatever. Like, it's a little bit of that, I think. But I think to all the people who aren't part of the Viennese Cafe Society and who don't see him as their own social project, wouldn't they be making the connections?
Yeah, the police.
I've got a name here and it says Schenner, who was a Salzburg investigator. He says, after Unterweger's release, Schenner, I think, heard reports of murders in Vienna in 1990 and recognised several parallels to the 74 murder. Schenner, I can't even say his name, Schenner, recalled telling police that Unterweger was one of the cleverest criminals in Austria. Early surveillance of him, however, proved fruitless. So someone must have been looking, I would suggest, based on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
but you're like this, Schmitty.
Slip. Yeah.
You're like this. And then they sort of jump ahead and they're talking about when he went to California. In California, Unterweger tried to meet with Hungarian-American actress and socialite Zaza Gabor, who began her acting career in Vienna and immigrated from Hungary to the United States during World War II.
Peasant girl Zaza, we call her.
And what did Zaza say? I never hated a man enough to give him back his diamonds.
Successful. He just says tried to meet her, so I don't know that he did.
She probably said,
Austrian-American director.
Go away, you stupid peasant.
Robert Dornhelm, trying unsuccessfully to convince him to produce a new film based on his autobiography. In both cases, he had apparently just sauntered up to their doors. So this guy's got big balls, right? This comes back to him being an absolute narcissist who, he's just, because he's getting away with it, like in broad daylight, really. I mean, I don't mean that metaphor. I do mean it metaphorically.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's gross.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God, it's so funny. Whoever's ever written this article, I must go and have a look at it. They've called it From Murdering from the Vienna Woods to the Hollywood Hills. I'm not sure.
I think you should state. I think you should state your source just out.
Let's go back. It's weird. It's called Botstiber Institute for Austrian American Studies, and that word is spelt Botstiber. You couldn't have looked for that and found it, could you? That's just happened to pop up. Isn't that crazy?
There you go. Well done.
From the Vienna Woods to the Hollywood Hills. It's such a movie, right? No wonder he's turned up to, Hollywood going, okay, Here I
Yeah,
am. I'm the guy you've sent me here to do a study on prostitution. But while I'm here, why don't we talk about a movie deal? I've been writing all this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm creating some work for me to study whilst I'm here. So, far out.
Yeah, and I want Leo to play me.
As the Washington Post reported, the jailhouse bard was so good with knots, braided his shoelaces into a noose and hanged himself.
The jailhouse bard.
The jailhouse bard.
See, I find that offensive.
Again, well, yeah,
Bards would find that offensive.
The bard, being Shakespeare, would find that highly offensive, yes.
So I think that I want to title it Prostitute's Revenge, because I think that they all need to have a way of getting back at him, because I think he's clearly a horrible person, but I'm not sure that the prostitutes are necessarily the ones who are going to have the violence in them. And if they want to, they're more than welcome to, but I don't want to force them to.
So we don't want to tar them with that brush. I see what you're saying. So your sentencing
is about a dark angel representing the prostitutes.
Got it. Yeah.
Who should they choose could also be supported by the prostitutes. They can more than happily join in if they want to, but I don't want to pressure them.
But yes, let's not paint them with that brush.
Correct. And what they're going to do is get the underwear of their clients, because I'm sure that there's probably a little bit of unsavoury action going on there, and they're going to strangle Jack almost to the point of death over and over and over with the underwear of their clients. So it's not Jack's underwear.
Isn't
so he doesn't
that what some people do to get off, though? Isn't that what's it called?
Yeah, but I don't think he was into the killing, not the receiving. But are we talking about like pooey grundies down your throat?
Or sun-stained,
sure.
or
soiled. I like that word.
just
soiled. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
but I'm glad someone could keep the highbrow there. Soiled.
And other people's. So
Not your own pooey grundies. I don't think anything's.
Correct.
I don't think. It's all revolting. Okay.
I mean, it's bad enough with your own, but it's someone else's, and possibly you could stuff one pair in his mouth whilst you're doing with another pair, just to make it even grosser for him.
At this point, I do need to just interject and check that my dog, who's sitting behind me, isn't listening, because he does have a little bit of fixation with people's underwear in our house. It's revolting. And it's like, put it down. And it doesn't matter whose it is. If you're putting the washing in the washing machine, he'll be jumping up trying to get it. I was like,
let go. Get out of there. Is his name Jack? Is his name Jack?
I'm looking at him, making sure he's not listening. He's asleep on the bed behind me. We're good. We're good, everyone.
He doesn't need
it's one
ideas.
Of those things. I look at it sometimes and I feel so uncomfortable. I think, oh, God.
It's not that unusual. They do. God. Brinkley, my sister's golden retriever, loves them. And the kids used to be like, we've got no underpants. And they'd all be outside because the dog's taken them all outside.
That's brilliant.
It's so cute.
Yeah,
gosh.
That is funny.
Oh.
Dog with a fetish.
Yeah. Well, Swanee?
I don't have one.
Oh, come on.
I know. I'm struggling with it.
What motivates him? The power.
I know.
The manipulation.
Oh, the infamy.
You got to, take it all away. Psychological nut punch. I think he should be sent back in time to stay always with his father. Being illiterate, not going to school, stuck in Nowheresville, stealing animals. Maybe getting a smack every now and then.
Oh, there's another one. Have you seen The Minority Report?
Is that a movie?
So
yeah,
it is.
No, I haven't seen it, but I know that name. Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is, what if there was actually secret footage of his 1974 murder, and whilst he was at one of his media events where there's people everywhere and he's got cameras on him and everything, there is a TV screen that starts playing the footage of him murdering one of the prostitutes.
Or we put a thing on his head that reads his thoughts and puts it onto a screen so everyone can see that beyond his I'm an intellectual genius, I have a deviant need to kill women.
I think Carla's dog's found the underwear.
I know, he's hurt. Yeah, now he's
underwear.
woken up. He's aware.
What's Grundies.
Arthur, what's happening?
Where are those knickers?
I want to kill people with underwear.
Oh, he is. He's gone crazy. Oh, he's gone crazy.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was thinking. So there's sort of two sentences I'm going to give. So one of them is going to obviously be for Johan, but based on the fact that I think that he's so into being a little bit sort of ahead of the game, ahead of everybody else, clever, conniving, I don't know whatever you want to say, but I think the thing that would break him the most was if he felt like he had attained this sort of respectability and notoriety from people who were going to make his life better, but also people who other people looked up to. Do you know what I mean? Even if you think they're wankers or whatever else, but, part of the establishment. So let's say he'd written his novel, he'd done whatever else, and there was a moment in time where he thought it was all falling into place. They were starting to believe that he'd been reformed, and that they were, that he was actually just a talented writer in his own sake. I'd just like to have that ripped out of him, because somebody then says, actually, no, this guy is a threat to everybody. He's not reformed. Somehow they were able to ascertain that. And not only did he have to stay in jail, he had to do a full life sentence, and no one ever paid him any attention ever again. So it was just the fact that he had it just within his grasp, where he could have had this, he could see that, he could have made a movie about his life. He was going to be respectable. He was going to be considered to be this reformed character who people found to be, mysterious and interesting, as opposed to just a murderer. And that means he doesn't get to do everything else, and that he's just left to rot in jail for the rest of his life.
Has to be nude and have his sheets. Have his sheets and everything removed,
and no shoelaces,
so he can't make anything to hang himself with. Yep.
Asking for a friend, is it too far to wish one of those brain injuries on him where he can think normally, but he can't alliterate things, so that he's got all the ideas of all the bestsellers that he could possibly write, but he's got no way of getting
in his
them.
brain.
Well,
I don't think it's even necessary. I can understand that, but I think it would be such a huge mental punishment for him to have the ideas that he had, and it obviously has a degree of intelligence, but just to be trapped there with no outlet, no forum, no one to listen to you. So
no hands.
Just nothing. No hands.
No hands and no tongue.
Voice. No voice.
God.
Yes. So
sorry, what's that, mate? Yeah,
that's right. So we can't even dictate it. That's right. Yes.
What you say?
God.
What you say?
Right.
Every time I think I'm taking it too far, I'm cool.
You just step back, and the rest of us jump in for you.
It's done for me.
Hold my beer.
The track.
And the other people that, and again, I don't really have a name, which is probably not such a bad thing, but there must have been some people within the context of the Austrian police force, or whatever you want to call them, their equivalent of the FBI. Yeah, I'm onto them now. How could I punish them? It would only take one or two of them to have done a little bit more to find something, right? And the fact that it was just a rampage, it wasn't like it was one and it was over here, it was there. Because as I understand it, and I could be wrong, Clarky, if he had murdered 7 people within the first year, those 7 murders with all the same MO were in the public domain in terms of they had been discovered, the bodies, right? It wasn't like we discovered one several years later, because those couple of years happened quite quick. A lot happened in those couple of years. You're already off to America within 18 months or something. So given the ferocity of them happening so quickly and everything all happening, and then nobody able to go, oh, hang on, could we just give me a moment? Just give me a moment. I'd just like to have a chat to this gentleman over here and really go through what, he's working on with respect to prostitution. Oh, I don't really want to say this. It's a bit gross. Really,
do it.
Maybe it would be, it might have heightened their sort of sense of response if someone in their own life had something happen to them.
Oh, so there it is. Psychological
pretty awful.
Shit,
pretty
hey, you are the motivator. Like, far out. You can get people to do things they just don't want to do.
Oh, I love the look on your face where you're like,
I feel so bad.
I feel so awful that I just said that, but that's what came into my mind. Right.
It's true. Yeah. It's like, if you're not going to fucking wake up, I think you're asleep on the job. And what would make this a little bit more real, closer to home, give you a sense of urgency, get people with the right, really looking at this? Maybe if someone a little bit closer to you had said something happened to them, then it'd be like
or not a sex
outrage.
worker, because the issue here is that sex workers' lives aren't important, and
correct. The outrage.
These people are just
where was the outrage?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, I think
this happens time and time again.
Exactly.
I think that goes
it's not just
for
this case.
a lot of them. Like it's not even just the police. I would have thought the media would cotton on to that.
I don't. I don't know who I'm talking about, but I'm talking. I'm not talking about a policeman. I'm not talking about an investigator. You're right. I'm not talking about a news. Surely.
The other thing I wonder about is the Viennese Cafe Society, because I do think that they had the wool pulled over their eyes, and I do think that they probably had ample opportunity for suspicion should they have wanted to see it. So I would like to sentence them to all of the coffees that they would like to enjoy. Of course, all of them have to have milk in it, and the milk is always going to be off. And, they'll get lovely cakes with lots of luscious cream in them, also off, so that they can't help themselves but indulge in their coffee and cakes and wonderful feel-good things about how they transformed somebody from a killer into a literary genius. But they can have their cake and they can eat it, and it's going to taste disgusting every single time.
There you go.
Well played. All right. Well, Clarky, another banger from you. Thank you very much.
From the Vienna woods to the Hollywood Hills.
Exactly right.
It's not a natural one, is it?
No, from the Vienna Schnitzel to the Hollywood Hills.
All right. Well, Clarky, thank you very much for a great topic today.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
And heard a little bit more about Carla's dog's underpants fetish.
Penchant.
Had we expected?
Penchant.
That's all right.
Sorry.
And
Sorry,
we all know...
I just outed Arthur.
We all know the correct way to refer to dirty underwear. Soiled.
Thank you.
Soiled?
I like crusty, but okay. All right. Or pooey. Anyway, good job. And as we say every week, miss you already.
Well done. Ciao.
See you, ladies.
Bye,
guys.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.